Smoke billows from the southern Lebanese hillside. The towns of Taiba and Jabba al-Rin hit by Israeli rocket fire. Retaliation for rockets fired from Lebanon intercepted above the Israeli border town of Metula this morning.
Around 7:30 in the morning, we woke to a number of incoming rockets. There were sirens, and then the Iron Dome system intercepted a number of rockets that were fired from Lebanon. We were able to see 2 fall inside Lebanon, and we immediately got the residents into the shelters in accordance with the Home Front command.
No one was hurt, and after the sirens finished, a tour group even continued their trip around the border area, confident in Israel's air defense system. A glimpse of fragile normality that may now once again be in danger.
We heard that it was something Metula, but this does not prevent us from going out and touring the areas in the north, because we believe that everything will be fine, and that we'll be able to enjoy all the nature from the south to the north or from the north to the south.
Today's attacks threaten a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The armed group denies responsibility for today's attacks. But Israel says they're to blame, hitting what it says are dozens of Hezbollah targets. In the village of Tulin, 2 people have been killed, including a child. 8 more were injured. The renewed fighting in southern Lebanon is a sideshow to the resumed war in Gaza. Here, the ceasefire, brokered by the Biden administration and signed off by Donald Trump's team, has collapsed, perhaps irreversibly. Israeli airstrikes in the last week have killed at least 600 people, many of them women and children who'd returned to their ruined homes and were largely living in tents. Last night, the IDF destroyed the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital, Gaza's only specialist cancer care facility. The UN has criticized the attack, saying targeting medical facilities violates international law. The UK, France and Germany have all called on Israel to respect the ceasefire. But crucially, America hasn't. Donald Trump has expressed his frustration that not all the Israeli hostages had already been released, even though he agreed to the deal that saw the release spread out over 2 phases. On the streets of Tel Aviv, the families of the hostages are incensed, afraid that a resumption of the fighting will end up killing their loved ones held in captivity in Gaza. Israeli society is tired of a war that has already dragged on for a year and a half. But Prime Minister Netanyahu holds the key, and he seems to be in no mood to stop the fighting. He still wants to see the complete annihilation of Hamas, and the longer the war grinds on, the less likely he is to be convicted on corruption charges and his government to fail. His stay out of jail card has come at a deadly cost. Well, earlier I spoke to Aaron David Miller, who's a former diplomat at the US State Department advising on Arab-Israeli negotiations. I started by asking him about the increasing tensions with Lebanon.
I'm not so sure about the Lebanon issue. I mean, Hezbollah is denying any responsibility for that rocket launch, and the Israelis obviously retain the right to respond, and they have. I'm not sure what the situation is in there, but I think strategically both Hezbollah, Iran, and Israel have no real motivation right now for upsetting what has been a remarkable turn of events in Lebanon. Gaza is another story, and I think it reflects the fact that Phase 2 was never going to be realizable. That is to say, the lifts on Hamas's side, releasing all of the prisoners in exchange for ironclad guarantees that Israel would end the war and withdraw from Gaza. No power on earth was going to give Hamas those guarantees.
And what's Netanyahu's interest in all this? Does he actually want peace? Or does he just want to continue this war forever, as many people have charged him with?
Well, remember, the prime minister is on trial for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in a Jerusalem district court now 4 years running. He must maintain himself in power in this iteration, presiding over the most right-wing government in Israel's history. Otherwise, he faces the real possibilities of a conviction, or perhaps more likely, a plea deal to avoid prison that would end his political career. No, so for Benjamin Netanyahu, let's be clear. Almost every decision that has been taken over the course of the last 15 months in some way or another is related to his political and legal travails. But right now, he's actually in a relatively secure position. He's got to pass the budget by the end of March. He's already fired the head of Shin Bet. He wants to fire the attorney general. And for that, he needs a coherent, reliable, and stable right-wing government. And that's what he has.
But would the ceasefire have collapsed the way that it has? Would these hundreds of Palestinians have died if it hadn't been for Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, basically saying, this is over? Is it his fault?
The causality here is really hard. It depends. If you're a Netanyahu hater or you're prepared to abide by the prime minister, you might essentially argue that, the single greatest impediment to ending the war was Benjamin Netanyahu. But, remember, this is never one hand clapping. Hamas bears an enormous of responsibility for what's happened on October 7th, for the placing of the entire population of Gaza in harm's way. And now, I suspect, for trying best it can to retain its influence and power by not releasing all the hostages. The strategy on the part of the U.S. and Israel is to essentially, incrementally, free hostages. And once hostages are freed, Hamas's leverage in Gaza, frankly, is over.
What about Donald Trump's role in all this? Has he opened the doors to things for Mr. Netanyahu that, frankly, would have been impossible before?
Well, I think there's no doubt that the president has given this Israeli government and the prime minister a wide margin for maneuver. There's no doubt that he's protected Netanyahu, he's energized him, and has given him, at least for now, and remember, Donald Trump changes policies like I change my socks. So the fact is, if I were Mr. Netanyahu, I would also focus on that encounter Friday of last with Mr. Zelensky. No American ally, friend, or partner is safe if it stands in the way of what Donald Trump wants.
Are you any clearer about what Prime Minister Netanyahu actually wants out of Gaza? How does he envisage the future of Gaza?
Oh, I think he'd see a future in which the Israelis have the right to preempt or prevent at will, a future in which there is certainly no stable Palestinian Authority governance, because that would take him back to the issue of what to do about the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But again, maintaining himself in power, keeping this right-wing government afloat is his core objective.
Staying out of jail?
It's an existential issue, for sure, for Benjamin Netanyahu, yes.
Aaron David Miller, thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt.